Welcome to the American Hypnosis Association. I see that I'm blessed this morning to have many familiar and friendly faces in the audience. But for those of you who don't know me, my name's John McCarthy. I'm a certified hypnotherapist on staff here at the Hypnosis Motivation Institute. And I know that most of you are intimately familiar with the curriculum of HMI. What I'm going to talk about today is very compatible with that curriculum. It's basically the same thing, it's just from a different perspective. What I'm going to talk about is scientific, it's philosophical, and it's also spiritual. You're going to hear me use words like spiritual, divine mind, universal intelligence, words that have a lot of religious overtones to them. But I'm not here to speak about religion per se, although what I am going to speak about is very spiritual, and it is compatible with all of the world's major religions. Don't worry, I'm not by any means going to dissuade anyone from your religious beliefs or preferences, although I do hope to convert you, if you're not already a convert, to the belief in the power of your mind to create the life that you desire through the use of spiritual law. That you can consciously create any circumstances that you desire by creating the consciousness of health, prosperity, abundance, whatever it is that you want. I'm going to give you a tool, a method that you can use to do that called spiritual mind treatment. And it's something that you can use in your practice as well as your professional life, your personal life. And I'm also going to call your attention to the fact that our consciousness has such a direct impact upon our effectiveness as therapists, and that the therapeutic process itself is a profoundly spiritual experience for both the therapist as well as the client. And we don't always necessarily think about that, and I just want to call our attention to that this morning. So the first thing I'd like to do is if everyone would close your eyes. Let us know that we're gathered here in one mind, with intelligence, for the purpose of opening our minds to a greater understanding of our profession, to be willing to accept new ideas, to gain new information that we can take away and use in our practice and our personal life. We are professionals committed to our craft, and our presence here this morning demonstrates that we are already a success. We're grateful for the opportunity to further our education, and this seminar and today now unfolds perfectly. Okay, you can open your eyes. Now, what I just demonstrated there was what is called spiritual mind treatment. It was very simple. The whole purpose of that was to induce within our consciousness a specific result. And in that case, it was to recognize that we're all here to learn, to further our profession, and to get ourselves in a frame of mind for that. Was that effective for anyone? For everyone, I hope? Now, spiritual mind treatment is something that was given to us by a man named Ernest Holmes, who wrote a book in 1925 called The Science of Mind. And from that book, the religious science movement basically developed. But again, I'm not here to talk about religious organizations per se, but the fact that there is this belief in the power of our mind to create the life that we desire, that there's a power greater than us that we can use to do that. It just so happens that this is one of the things that religious science does. And since he wrote that book, over the last 70 years, thousands and thousands and thousands of practitioners have used this method of spiritual mind treatment to effectively heal, to effectively obtain results in their lives and in the lives of others. Ernest Holmes basically got his ideas from the New Thought movement, which took place in the 1800s. And a lot of that was based on transcendentalism from Ralph Waldo Emerson, who wrote a lot of essays, one being Self-Reliance. And he also studied all of the world's major religions and philosophical systems, and he was trying to distill what the essence of each of those philosophies was, trying to pull out what was really practical and useful that could be used every day to make a difference in people's lives. He was greatly influenced by a man named Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, Dr. Phineas Parkhurst Quimby, who was a mesmerist. And he practiced in New England throughout the 1800s, from like the 40s through the 80s. And he was a mesmerist, and he used hypnosis, but from a mesmerist perspective. And he was very, very effective. But eventually, after a couple of decades of doing mesmerism, he started to practice more in the way that we're accustomed to doing. He would go in, a lot of times the clients that he would see would be bedridden. And what he would do is he would go into the room and they would have the lights dim and the client would be there in the bed. And he would sit down and he would begin to talk to them. And he would use the power of words to affect their consciousness. But he was also treating his own consciousness. And he would talk about their presenting issue. And he would point out that what they were thinking was not necessarily the truth, and he would give them alternatives, just like we do. And he would basically use argument to, as a lawyer would, to basically convince them that what was manifesting in their life was a result of just errors of thinking, and that if they began to think a different way, that they would have different results in their experience. And although people say that he got away from hypnosis, I don't believe he ever did. I think he just got away from mesmerism because, of course, back then, the mesmerists were still believing that there was this magnetic fluid that flowed between the therapist and the subject, and that you had to do passes of the arms to work with the magnetic flow. And he sort of abandoned that because he really understood that all he needed was the power of thought, the power of words. And I think he was still using hypnosis, but not from the mesmerist perspective, but more from the perspective that we use with our clients. He would get them relaxed, he would get them into a suggestible state, he would show them how they became suggestible to their issue, and he would use thought to convince them that there was a different reality. Now, his patients, his clients, weren't always receptive to his message, but that didn't matter. He still was able to obtain results, and the reason is because his belief was that there's one mind. There's one mind, that we all share this one mind, that we're in fact individual points in consciousness of this one mind. Each one of us is individuals. Each one of us is capable of thinking. Well, each one of us does think for ourselves. We choose what to think. But there's one mind that we all have access to, and there's a creative power of mind that creates. Out of the invisible essence, it creates into form. Everything that exists at the level of form is spirit in form. Everything that exists from this table to this school to this country began in the thoughts of people's minds and eventually manifested into form. You know, and we talk about that in the theory of mind. We talk about how our subconscious knowns affects what we're experiencing, and that through hypnosis we have access to the subconscious and we can plant new information which will result in a new experience for our clients. But we don't really touch on how that happens. And what Quimby and what Holmes and all these New Thought thinkers said is that the reason that it happens is that there is a law, a spiritual law that acts upon thought, and that there's a creative medium into which all of our thinking goes. And it's very plastic, and our thought is the mold which forms that medium into experience. So as you think, so it is. What you believe is what you get. And if you want a different experience in your life, you can change your thinking, because ultimately, each one of us is responsible for our lives and for the experiences that we're having. Does everyone believe that, or do we think that maybe it's outside forces and sometimes we're subject to fate and there's things beyond our control? I mean, we hear all of that, don't we? But what these New Thought thinkers said is that it's all a result of our consciousness. And yes, things occur that we didn't necessarily create. However, we're responsible for the way we respond to those situations. And by our response, we're automatically putting new thoughts out into the creative mind, which then either reinforce that experience or change the experience. So we always have control. We always have the freedom to think the thoughts that create our experience. So that's very empowering. In one sense, it could be frightening because we feel like, oh my God, I'm responsible. It's up to me now and no one else. But at the same time, that's what free will is. That there's this creative power that responds to our mind automatically. It's a law. And that's what principle is. It's just like the law of gravity. You know, we don't see it, and Isaac Newton has described it, but there were other people before him that described gravity in a different way. And for all I know, there's people, modern physicists, that are describing it in a new way today. But basically, he saw the results. He saw that the apple fell from the tree. He saw that we didn't just fly off the planet, that things were held into place. Well, what caused this? Something invisible. We can see the effects, but we can't see the law. So he formulated the law of gravity to explain what was occurring. Well, by the same token, there are spiritual laws that govern the activity of mind. The law of cause and effect is such a spiritual law. In a sense, it's the law that everything is constantly being created out of mind, that mind constantly responds to our thinking automatically. And for every thought that we have, there's an automatic effect. Now, does this mean that we think something and it immediately manifests in our experience? No, unfortunately it doesn't, because I know I've had lots of thoughts that came off. The last thing I'd ever want is for them to have manifested immediately. But what basically happens is that it takes the sum total of our consciousness. You know, what we've developed each and every day by all of those patterns of thinking that we've had, all of those subconscious knowns that we know about from the theory of mind, and it just takes that sum total of thinking, and that's what we get in our experience. You know, you see people and they say, you know, good things just seem to happen to me. I'm a really lucky person. Now, are they lucky, or is it because they believe that good things happen to them? And then we hear other people that say, you know, nothing ever goes right. Why me? It's always me. And they do seem to have a lot of bad luck, don't they? But is it luck, or is it their thinking? And so I would encourage us to all look at what we think and look at our experiences and say, if we're wanting a new experience, examine what are the thoughts that are going through our mind. Do they support the experience that we desire, or don't they? We all want to be successful hypnotherapists. Now, are we all thinking the thoughts necessary for that to occur? Or do we have doubts? Do we have fears? Do we think, you know, this is hard, this isn't going to happen, there's not enough clients to go around, there's too much competition? Or are we thinking that all the clients that I can help are being attracted to me right now, that I have the skills, I have the tools, I am effective, I know what I'm doing, and I'm ready and I'm able, and my practice flourishes? Those are supportive thoughts. And if that's not manifesting in your experience, ignore your experience, because that's at the level of effect. And there's cause behind effect. And again, if we focus on effect, we're reinforcing effect. If you say, yeah, all my clients canceled today, and I've had to go through this, and I can immediately start going down that trail that says, oh, this isn't working out, you know, now I bet my next one's going to cancel too. And then what am I reinforcing? That clients aren't going to show up, that, you know, this doesn't work out, it's too hard. So the thing to do is, whenever we encounter something like that, is to immediately become aware of what we're thinking and change it to something that supports us. And to ignore the level of effect and to go to the point of cause. Because if we start thinking from the point of cause, we begin to manifest new experiences in our life immediately. And that's the principle. That's the first page of the handout that I've shown you. This is what Holmes based all this on. And it's ancient principle. It's Hermetic law, from the law of as above, so below. And basically, on the board here, we've got it illustrated. There's a trinity. We've heard that in so many different aspects. But basically, there's a conscious mind. That's the mind that's the thinker. That's the mind that has the free will to think the thoughts that you desire. We're free to think anything that we want. No one can force us to think anything. You can be put in a prison and it doesn't matter. You can still be free within your mind to think whatever you want. So we're not subject to influences outside of us. We always choose how we can respond. Then there is subjective mind. It's subject to conscious mind. It's that plastic mold. It's infinite substance that's just waiting to be molded into something. And it just waits for us to place our demand upon it. Within infinite mind, there's no big, there's no small. Just like gravity doesn't care if it's holding down a golf ball or the Empire State Building. It holds them both down equally and just as easily. Well, spiritual law doesn't care what we think. It doesn't care if we think positive thoughts or negative thoughts, constructive thoughts or destructive thoughts, big thoughts or little thoughts. It's impersonal, it's law, it's mechanical and mathematical, just like the law of gravity. So think big thoughts. If you're going to use your mind to create abundance and wealth and health, and it's like going to the ocean, and there's that vast ocean. You know, do you show up with a paper cup, or do you wheel up a 100-gallon tanker, a 1,000-gallon tanker, a 10,000-gallon tanker? I mean, the ocean is ready to give. The universe is ready to give. It's an abundant universe. It's infinite. And it's all mind, and we are of that mind. We are that mind. We have infinite potential within us. You know, and we always hear we tap into so little of it, and it's probably true. So I just want to stimulate us to tap into as much as we can, to decide what you want in your life, what's important to you, and begin developing the thoughts that support that. And spiritual mind treatment will be a tool that you can use among many other tools, hypnosis being one of them. The subjective mind is law. It's law. It responds automatically. It has to. It has to. So there's no sense of forcing this to happen. It's just like I don't have to force this cup to stay on the table with the law of gravity. I just place it there and the law does the work. It's the same thing with the law of mind. All we have to do is create the consciousness of that which we desire in a calm, peaceful way. But we need to accept it with feeling, to really believe, because by the power of our belief, so it is. You know, we really have to accept it and believe it. And then when we do, the law responds automatically. There's no force, there's no will. We can release our thoughts and trust that it's being corresponded to. There's a mental equivalent. Mind, our mind, responds to mind. And the big mind with a capital N responds to our mind. Just automatically. So if you know that you have gravity and you understand how it works, you can use leverage, and I can use a fulcrum and a lever, and I can lift a 500-pound stone easily because I understand how the law works. Well, if we understand that this law responds to our thinking and that it's just a matter of developing the consciousness. So we develop the consciousness, not trying to develop the effect itself. Let's say that you want a new home. Well, you concentrate again upon having the consciousness of the home, of just becoming clear in your mind of what it is that you want, what that home feels like, what home means to you, how much space you need, whether it's a yard. You don't get specific to the point that you say, I've got to live at 1525 Maple Avenue, and that's the only home that's going to work for me, and if it's not that, nothing else will do. Because then we're bound to be disappointed. We develop the consciousness and we allow the law to work out the details. And when it comes to persons, places, or things, we don't get overly specific. We don't say, I have to have an office in that building. Instead, we say, I want an office that has a nice room for therapy and a waiting room, and the rent's affordable, and there's parking, and it's very accessible for my clients. And it's a nice part of town where I can go out and have lunch in a nice restaurant. And then we allow the law to take care of the details. And we trust that we're guided into right action. So we take action, and we're trusting that our consciousness is being worked on by the law to bring us to the right building. So we don't get hung up on, I've got to have that space, and I've got to talk that landlord into giving me that lease. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? So subjective mind is that plastic medium into which conscious thoughts go. and begin to shape into form and experience. And form and experience is at the level of the relative. It's all relative to what we think. But what we think is at the level of the absolute, of infinite mind, the one spirit, interpenetrating everything that we are. That's the level of the absolute, and that's where cause comes from. So if we focus our consciousness at the level of the absolute to know that we're enough, right now we're a success, we're perfect, whole, and complete, and we were born that way. That no matter what we do our entire lives, we can never add to or take away from the spirit that we were born as. We are life expressing. And everything that we experience in life is a result of what we think into creative mind. So we're free to change our experience by simply changing our thinking. Change your thinking, change your life. And if it doesn't happen right away, you just continually, patiently, consistently work at it until you develop the consciousness of that which you desire. And it will manifest in your life. I think this is exciting. I think it's so empowering. And I see how it directly applies to therapy. Because if I go into a session with a client, there's another power going on there. It's not just the suggestions that I'm giving my client. They're dropping into his subconscious mind or her subconscious mind. The other power is everything that's going on in my consciousness. Do I believe that I can be effective as a therapist? Do I believe that this works? Do I see past the level of effect with my client, and do I see his divine nature or her divine nature? That whatever their experience is that it's only relative. And yes, it's real, and the pain is real, and they're going through it, and it's hard and it's difficult. But that doesn't mean that's the truth. That's only at the level of experience. And there's a truth greater than that. That this client in front of me is part of divine spirit, is already perfect, whole, and complete. And if I can start to see past the level of experience to what they desire as already being manifest, that gives such a power to the therapy session. And it doesn't have to be said at all, but it's there within my consciousness. And what's in my consciousness is being responded to by the law of mind. And we're all one mind. And even though my client, although I may sit there and give him suggestions or her suggestions, they're picking up at some level what's truly going on within my consciousness. Do I not want to be there? Am I saying to myself, oh, why do I have this client? I hate working with this particular issue. You know, I've found that when I hate working with a particular issue, that's the clients I get. Until I can work through that in my own mind, until I can transmute that into something more positive, till I deal with it in my own consciousness. And once I've dealt with it in my own consciousness, then I can either be more effective with my client, or then I have the freedom to say, well, you know, I really don't want to work with this particular issue, but I'm no longer bound to it because I don't hate it any longer. I've resolved it. I've seen past it. And now I can freely refer that client out if I even attract it anymore at that point. Chances are I won't. But that which you're attached to through any powerful emotion is what you will get. So if you recognize that there's a certain client that you do not want to deal with, you might want to deal with that in your own mind. And you might find out you end up loving working with those clients once you've been able to do that. And if you're dealing with in a session and you feel like you're not being effective, what is it triggering in your consciousness? What buttons are being pushed? Therapy is a wonderful, wonderful process. I mean, we are so lucky as therapists because every session that we do is therapy for ourselves. It's not that we turn the session around and we start bringing up our issues. Our focus is always on our clients, of course. But just be aware of what's going on in your mind as you do the session, what's being triggered. And as we help our clients grow and overcome obstacles and manifest all of their desired good, we can't help but do the same within ourselves. And I always give myself the suggestion that every suggestion I give my clients that is positive and beneficial for me, I take as well. And so I love doing 5 sessions in a day. It doesn't wear me out at all because it's like 5 hours of therapy for myself. You know, again, it's not taking the focus off of the client. We're always giving them 100% of our attention. But it's knowing that it's a twofold process. It's not just sitting back and putting them in the chair and then rattling off a bunch of suggestions and that's it. It's being very aware of the whole dimension that's going on, and the fact that there's one mind and we're in that process, and everything going on in our mind is very important and very powerful. And believe in your effectiveness as a therapist. In a sense, when I say the word power, that's really not absolutely true, because again, there's a law that we can rely upon. And it's not our power, it's just using the power. The power is something that we can use. It flows through us. But it can only do for us what it does through us, what we're willing to accept and embody and open our minds to. I mean, why is it that some people are just trapped in a life that never gets beyond a certain level? Is it because they're destined for that? You know, is that their fate, their destiny? Is it because there's no hope for them to overcome that? Or is it because they just have conditioned thinking that keeps them there? You know, when we see people who prosper and succeed, how do we feel about that? Do we bless them? Do we realize that they're just doing something that we can do too? Because if we hold any resentments, any envy, it's just holding us back. There is an abundance in the universe that is available to all of us. There's more than enough to go around. We can all have infinite wealth, health, happiness, joy, and success is different for each and every one of us. We all define it in our own way. So there's no point in judging or comparing. It's going inside, knowing what's important and meaningful to us, honoring and nurturing that, and developing the consciousness of that so that it manifests in our life. Again, I just think this is exciting stuff. And I just hope to stimulate that excitement within you. Now, spiritual mind treatment is, again, a method that Holmes developed, basically based on this principle. It's something that you can sit down to consciously do when you want to work on demonstrating some particular effect in your life. You want a healing, or you want to create something in your life. So you can take the time to sit down and develop. This helps you to develop the consciousness of that by inducing the concepts, the realizations, the affirmations, the acceptances that will lead you to that place where you believe it to be true, where you accept it. And think about the things that you do believe to be true about yourself, that you do fully accept. They're easy, aren't they? You don't even think twice about them. You just know there's certain things you're capable of doing, and you go out and you do them. For some of us, it's the fact that we always know that we're taken care of, that we'll always have a job, that we'll always have income. For others, it's knowing that we'll always be in a healthy relationship, that we'll always be able to attract friends and loved ones. For some of us, it's just knowing that we're healthy, that we don't get colds. You know? Is it true that we have to get colds, or is that a belief? Is it true that we ever have to get sick? I mean, I get sick, and every time I do, I look within my consciousness to try to explore what's going on, what beliefs do I have? And the more that I learn to do this, the faster I get over that illness, the faster those symptoms within the body leave, and I can move forward in life with a greater consciousness, a greater awareness. But I don't believe any longer thoughts like, well, you know, every time the weather changes, you catch a cold. Or if you go outside and it's raining, you're going to catch a cold. Or cancer runs in my family, you know, so it's inevitable. Or everybody in my family is overweight. I mean, are those truths, are those beliefs? We have to ask ourselves those things. And if we don't want those kinds of effects in our life, start developing a consciousness of something different and see how it demonstrates in your life. That's the proof in the pudding, is to use this to demonstrate. Because it doesn't mean anything unless we can demonstrate. What's the point, right? It's just so much rhetoric, so much philosophy. So I would encourage you to put it to use. Decide something that you want to work on. In fact, I have a list in here of 5 things that you want to demonstrate. Just select 5 things you want to demonstrate over the next year and begin developing the consciousness of that. Begin noticing what you're thinking. And when you realize you're thinking thoughts that aren't necessarily constructive, just let that go and start focusing on positive thoughts. Because if you get upset with yourself, you're just going to reinforce those negatives. You're going to start another chain of causation, of self-condemnation, guilt, or what have you. So it's best to just go, oh, there I am in my old pattern of thinking. Let me just turn from that, focus on cause, and know that I can create a new experience in my life. Now, on this metaphysical chart, we've covered that. And as you see from the handout that you have, there's a lot of other words for it. That trinity of spirit, spirit, soul, and body is the same idea. Spirit would be conscious mind. Spirit is that which moves, which sets the law into motion, which impels the law. Soul is that subjective medium into which thought goes, that creative medium which takes thought and begins manifesting it into the body, form, substance. So that's that trinity. We also have cause, the medium, and effect. All of these things, as you see on your chart, are just different names for the same thing. Conscious mind, subjective mind, and form or experience. Now, on the next page, I have an outline of spiritual mind treatment. There's basically 5 steps. The first step is to realize that there is one mind. There's one infinite intelligence. There's one spirit that penetrates everything, that is everything. It flows through everything. It's always available. It's all-powerful. It's omnipotent. It's always present. It's all-knowing. It's omniscient. It's always readily there. It's the source of life, and it's infinite and complete. And everything that's been created has just been created out of itself. It's the self-knowingness of spirit. Because whatever is has to come from substance or from thought. And there's only one, so for there to be an experience, it's only the one thinking out of its own self and looking at itself to know itself. Duality all reconciles into the one. And duality is energy and matter, spirit and matter. It's the infinite, which is invisible, forming the visible out of itself to know itself. And that's what we do at the individual level. We're individual points in this consciousness. I mean, we didn't create the planets and the stars and the universes and all the wonderful myriad of life that's all around us. Did we even create our own bodies? I don't know. I don't know what did. But I know that within us, in our lives, we have the power to use this creative principle to create the life of our desire. So at our individual level, we use the same creative process that created planets and stars and the universe to create in our own life from the same law. So we're just individual points in this consciousness. And that's the second step, is to unify with that intelligence. There's one divine intelligence. That intelligence is in us, and that intelligence is us. There's one mind. We are that mind. I mean, if everything is one, then we are one. It is us. And that's why we do have the creative power. Yet we have it at the individual level. You know, there is something greater than us which does the work, yet we have access to it. We can use it creatively. Just as we break a bone, we set the bone, but what does the healing? Something greater than us heals the bone. No doctor that's ever been through medical school knows how to exactly heal a bone. All he knows how to do is set the bone. There's something greater that does the healing. Now, we can encourage that healing or discourage that healing by the thoughts that we have. We can promote health and healing and wellness by believing in it, by imagining it, by knowing that we're healed already. And there's such an infinite power there. I mean, I know I said earlier that it can't manifest, or it usually doesn't manifest immediately, but it all depends on the power of belief. I generally don't have the power, but there are some things over my life that I believe in so firmly that they do manifest immediately. Sometimes I do it with simple things like a parking space. You've had that experience? But there's no big or little. If we can do it with a parking space, we can do it with healing a bone. We can do it with manifesting any experience in our lives. We're just coming to a greater awareness of that and an understanding of that. So we unify. That's step 2. Now step 3 is to realize or declare our good. That's to make all the statements and affirmations in consciousness that help us to develop the idea of what we desire. If you want a healthy practice, you start saying, I am a successful hypnotherapist. I know what to do, I have the training, and my instinct guides me so that when I work with a client, I know exactly what to say and what to do. And that I do attract all of the right clients for me that I can serve in the most optimal way. And these are the kind of declarations you make until you have a belief in it, until it really feels like it's real. So there's warmth to it. It's not a sense of force, again. There's no will necessary. In fact, will is counterproductive because it's implying that there's a fear that you have to force it to happen. And we don't. There's a law that responds automatically. We just develop the belief that I am effective. Isn't that what Dr. Kappas has? A belief in what he does? And isn't that what Erickson had and Mesmer had? They believed in what they did. And there's a power to that. And it immediately affects your client when they walk through the door. They just sense it at an unconscious level, at the level of mind. So we make all of the statements. For example, here it says, I have all the facts I need. I understand the facts I have. I act intelligently on the information I have. Those are just examples of the kinds of statements, whatever you need to say. And if you need to deny something, if something comes up, a sense of fear or a doubt, deal with it immediately. Face it and work with it until you've overcome it. Then the next step is to have gratitude or acceptance. It's thanks in advance. There's a power to that. There's a power to be thankful for that which has not yet manifested in your life. It believes that it is now. Because if we're always saying, I'm going to be successful, I'm going to have this is going to happen for me, it always implies that it's going to happen in the future. And someday never comes. It's always one more step down the road. So whenever we make these statements, we need to embody the belief that it's here and present right now. That we are whole and healthy and healed, and our body is performing optimally, every system functioning perfectly, every cell has the wisdom and the intelligence and knows what to do, and that there's nothing within us that can distract from the perfect functioning within our human body. We are health. I am health right now. Again, it doesn't mean that sickness isn't a real experience, but we ignore it. We look past it to cause, because as soon as we do that, we begin creating a new experience. So we're grateful. We have an attitude of gratitude. There's power in that. And then we release it. We just release it. We've created this treatment, and thoughts are things. They're acted upon by law, and everything that is matter is thought in form. And so we've released our treatment unto the law, and now we can go about our business without worrying about it, because there's a law that is acting upon us. And in the right way, in the right time, working out all the details, it will manifest in our life. So we can just release it. It's like if you plant a seed, you don't continually go out and pull it up to see if it's growing. You've planted the seed, you've watered it, and all you do now is tend to the weeds in your garden. Those weeds of doubt, those weeds of fear. If you don't demonstrate immediately, you just keep working on it. Perhaps a treatment lasts over a period of time, but you just consciously, consistently work on that treatment until you demonstrate. You work on the weeds and allow the seed to grow, allow the law to do its work. That's a spiritual mind treatment. And as I said, it's been used for the last 70 years. Thousands and thousands and thousands of people have demonstrated so-called miracles in their lives. But it's not miracles, it's just use of the law, use of the power of their mind. And I think understanding this and incorporating it into what we do as hypnotherapists just allows us to be that much more effective. What do you think? Yeah. Now, on the next page, I've given you a blank form that you can kind of use to practice treatment. And then beyond that, I've got a page where I would encourage you to list 5 important demonstrations that you intend to make in the next year. And then list, what are the thoughts that you're thinking now that perhaps you need to stop thinking, that are preventing you from having that already? Examine your consciousness and really observe what you're saying to yourself, what maybe their deep-seated beliefs are that are preventing you from having it. And then begin to change them. List the kinds of thoughts you need to start thinking. And use treatment, use hypnotherapy, and just be aware of what you're thinking. And when you notice you're thinking those thoughts you don't want, just calmly turn to thoughts you do want and set a new train of causation into motion. And experiment with this. Decide 5 important things that are meaningful to you and work on them until you demonstrate. Now, on the next page, there's a couple of worksheets that I've given you just so that you have a chance to explore what some of your thoughts are. For example, on money. What are some thoughts regarding money that we might have that are not necessarily healthy? Anybody? I don't have enough money. What? It's the root of all evil. I'm never going to have enough money. It's hard to get money.
Doesn't grow on trees.
Money doesn't grow on trees.
I possibly couldn't make that much money.
There's no way I could possibly make that much money. Are these truths? They're beliefs, though, and they affect our consciousness and they affect our experience. So what could be some positive thoughts that we could have instead? I attract money. I can make as much as I require or need.
Money comes to me from everywhere.
Money comes to me from everywhere, unexpected sources. I am open to the abundant flow of energy in my life, recognizing that it is spiritual energy and that I always have enough. And we don't always have to treat for money. If you need a car and you're treating for money so you can buy a car, maybe what you could treat for is right transportation. Or in my case, you just change where you live and suddenly you don't need a car anymore because you walk across the street to work. You know, so things can come to us from unexpected sources. Now, what about health? What are some thoughts that we have that maybe don't serve us in regards to health? I have no control over health. The environment is negative. There's germs, bacteria, sickness out there. What else? The flu always gets me for a week, inevitably. Not 3 days, not 9 days, but a week, invariably.
I get cold every winter.
I'm fat, and I can't do anything about it. I get colds every year.
I get allergy when the weather changes.
When the weather changes, my allergies kick up.
If someone's sick that I'm around, I get sick.
Yeah. Uh-oh, I don't want to be around them. They're sick. I'll catch it.
The biggest one, I think, is when a doctor diagnoses you with something and you think,
Ooh, look how we surrender our power to that. The doctor said, I've got 6 months. I've got this, I'm diabetic. I've got this disease. I need this. Sal?
I was just going to say, if I go out and get the newspaper and I'm not dressed properly in the morning, I'm going to catch a cold. My wife will yell, so you're going to get sick. Yet in other countries, people they'll leave their huts and go out and throw themselves in the freezing river and go back in just for fun.
So what is it? What's the truth? It's belief, isn't it? What are some healthy thoughts about health? What are some thoughts that support us?
I don't get sick.
I don't get sick. I'm healthy. It can't get more simpler than that. What else? I'm strong and energetic.
I control the state of my own health.
I control the state of my own health.
Every day I get healthier and healthier.
Is that a future one that you're talking about?
The only problem I would have with that is that it's almost implying that you're not healthy now. I have total and complete abundant health within me right now.
Okay, so you got to talk about it now.
Yeah. And that's where our thought is very subtle. You know, we may think we're thinking positive thoughts, but are they as fully positive as we'd like them to be? You know, sometimes people are conditioned to thinking a certain way and they think they're thinking positively, but they're really not. They're saying, well, I'm not going to fail so much anymore. You know, that's not the best kind of statement that you want. And they think that's positive thinking. Well, for them at that time, that's the best they can do. I think it's important to help our clients develop new patterns of thinking. And sometimes they come in, we work on the presenting issue, we give them the suggestions, it goes away and they're okay, but what goes on in the rest of their life? Are there conditioned patterns of thought? I think we can do a lot by helping them to stand on their own and to be aware of the power of their thinking to affect their lives so they don't continue to create negative effects that they have to come back to us for. And we can do that. We don't have to hang on to clients. We can trust that they can be healed and move on, and we'll always have enough. We're enough. We're taken care of. We don't rely on any specific client, persons, places, or things for our abundance. We generate within ourselves, and it comes back to us. It's mirrored to us. Sam?
As a collective mind, just thinking that there is negativity in the world, and we see a lot of negative things happening. As a collective mind, can we create negative things greater than ourselves?
There are race beliefs. Jung talked about the collective mind and the subconscious mind, the subjective mind. If it's all one mind, we're subject to the thoughts of the entire race. And there's no time or there's no place. It's all out there. And, what are some beliefs that America has? Our country. What are beliefs that your particular ethnic race has about your particular ethnic race? Irish are subject to alcoholism. Is that true, or is it a belief? This race is this way. This country is, we believe in this. And sometimes we get caught up in those beliefs. You wonder why certain nations have such a difficulty coming out of where they are. They have such mass consciousness that keeps them where they are. Fortunately, we live in a great country that has pretty positive mass consciousness, despite all the negativity out there. We are based on that fundamental belief that anything you can conceive of, you can achieve it, you can accomplish it. That's a great thing, because it's the truth. And our country was founded by great thinkers, really profound thinkers, who came here for the freedom to express their lives and to create from their minds. So there's other things too, success and opportunity, love. What are some negative thoughts we have about love? I'll never find someone who will understand me and love me.
Totally undeserving.
I'm totally undeserving of love. I'm a loser. Who would want me? I never get into a healthy relationship.
No one's ever loved me.
No one's ever loved me, or ever will.
Personal experience.
Let's switch to some positive ones here. What are some constructive thoughts?
I am lovable.
I am lovable. That is a great one. I attract the right partner for me. I am committed to love. And it's being open too. I'm committed to loving all of those people who are in my experience. Sal?
John, I'm sitting here as you're bringing these things out. I notice that it's so much easier, I guess because of our training, to think of all the unhealthy or the negative. But when you come, okay, let's hear some positive things. People still, but you really got to think of what you got to say. And we're just so tuned in to the negative all our lives.
Yeah, we've gotten in habits of negative thinking, and it's magnified by the media oftentimes, by people's fears that want to keep you down where they are because they're afraid. But we don't have to stay there. It may take some work, but by examining it, by being willing to be aware of what we're thinking, we can start to develop the thoughts that will manifest in our life. That we do have the power in our life to consciously create change. Lane? Anyone else?
So this just comes down to the basic belief of you get what you focus on.
As you believe, so it is. You get what you focus on, where your attention goes, that's where you go. All of these sayings that we're aware of, David?
I know that when making decisions, there's a lot of times I get sidetracked by having so-called second thoughts. So what are your thoughts on instincts versus second thoughts?
Second thoughts.
Like hesitation.
Oh, in other words, you make up your mind to do something, but then you start having second thoughts about it.
Yeah.
I would say that's like fear and doubt. So when you're aware of these second thoughts, immediately face them in consciousness and deal with them. The work that we do is within our own mind. So we face those thoughts and we examine them and say, is this true? And what do I need to think to overcome these doubts, these fears, these second thoughts? And I don't need to go there. And there's that within me that knows the truth. And I cannot have second thoughts because I am in tune with first cause, which works for me. I've made up my mind, it is the truth. I accept it now, and it now manifests in my life. And just really convince yourself of the truth. Jamie?
John, have you found, since this is kind of a reprogramming of the self as well as our clients, that there are, like in the mental bank, better times and worse times to do this reprogramming, like mental bank is the last 30 minutes before sleep?
Well, the advantage of the mental bank is because it's right before you go to sleep, and when you go to sleep and your mind goes into abeyance, all of those positives that you've put into the mental bank drop into your subconscious mind. So that's why that's the magic 30 minutes. It's very effective in the mental bank. However, every thought that we have contributes to the sum total of our consciousness. So it's important that we learn to condition ourselves to think positive thoughts all the time. Spiritual mind treatment is a time like the mental bank where we can sit down and we can consciously decide on something that we want to work on, make our intention specific and direct, and treat for it until we have the consciousness of it. But ultimately our goal is to all the time think thoughts that support us, to always deny the negative and always deny the relative, and always be coming from a place that we are the power in our lives by our ability to think. And there's a law which responds to our thinking. And everything is possible to us. And all the good that is everywhere, and it is in our life right now. And it's just waiting for us to place our demand, place our order upon the universe, and it will supply it inevitably. That we're infinite and complete ourselves, and we can just create a wonderful lives for ourselves. Yeah. Yes?
Do you not believe in fate?
In fate? No, I don't.
Not at all.
I believe that we are the power in our lives.
Within limits.
There are certain limits, but I'm not even sure if there are. I'm not going to go out and create a moon, although who knows in the future. I certainly have created in my own universe unto myself. Yes?
My anatomy and physiology teacher said that thoughts create chemicals in your brain.
Mm-hmm.
So I really believe in that too. It really affects me.
Yeah, there's so many different ways of looking at this, and there's definitely the physiological correspondent, but it all resolves down to spirit. It all resolves down to thought. It's a mental and spiritual universe that we're living in. And I've got just a couple minutes, right? I've got 2 minutes, so I'm going to have to... Do you have one last question?
Yeah, I was just wondering if this whole concept of the spirit and the mind, is that demonstrated more in someone who is like a psychic or a healer? You know, the
It's demonstrated according to your belief. And each one of us demonstrates at the level of our belief. And there's no greater, no less. All of us are perfect. What we're experiencing in our life is a perfect demonstration of our consciousness and what we've been thinking. It's just simply a matter, if you want to experience something different, develop a new consciousness. Start thinking different thoughts. Change your thinking, change your life. All the power that is within you right now. You have access to it as much as we all do. We're all of one mind. So you have all the power that anyone else has within you. And your life is your creation. And there is no great or small. Each of our lives is an individual expression of the one mind. Now what I'd like to do is a closing treatment. So again, close your eyes. There is one mind, one infinite intelligence, everywhere present, and it is present now. And we are all of that mind. We are all individual points in consciousness. And all the power that is within us now. As we move forward in our lives, taking from this seminar something very useful that we can apply to create greater good, to create all the abundance, health, prosperity, and success that we desire. We know that we are enough and that we flourish as hypnotherapists. We are committed and we accept our greatest good into our life now. For this is the truth, and so it is. So go have a great day. Thank you.